Shenstone has long been associated with Christianity, and the original Saxon church was referred to in the Domesday Book. It was replaced in the 12th century by a medieval church built on its Saxon foundations. By Victorian times, the old church was proving too small for the parish's growing congregation, and in 1853 the present church was built to replace it. However, the medieval church tower was retained and used as a bell tower for 10 years until the new tower took its place. The old tower is square-shaped and approximately 15 metres high. Inside there are 80 steps in 5 flights with 5 landings. Each landing area is 3.5 metres square. As you approach the tower by way of the pathway from St John the Baptist Church, look up and appreciate the arch, now topped with a fashionable grass top. This was the inner door of the south porch entrance. Note the 3 small imposts on the left-hand side. These are the blocks, capitals or mouldings from which an arch springs. The right-hand imposts are missing. These would, of course, have been inside the original church, and here new mothers would sit and wait to be called and churched, a ceremony of thanksgiving and purification. Names of persons who were given charity handouts would be listed on a notice board here. As you pass through the arch, to the right is the chest tomb of Edward Grove of Shenstone Park Hall, a very grand house, now demolished.
Opposite the tomb of Edward Grove, and under an impressive hooded arch notable for the 2 projecting voussoirs, is the magnificent entrance to the old tower. Either side of the door are single columns topped with a rounded capital. Each column is decorated with a thin, string-like curved moulding at the top and at the bottom. The columns are raised and circular. From the top of each one, the decorative arch rises to frame the doorway. Much graffiti decorates the stonework. Above this, and projecting outwards from the stone, are tiles which mark the apex of the old church's gable roof. To the right of the doorway is an old sculpture. This is an early 17th century carving of the merchant tailor's crest. Robert Ducci, lord of the manor of Shenstone, who lived at Little Aston Hall in the 1630s, was a member of the Merchant Tailors Guild and is likely to be the originator of this sculpture. We enter the tower via the old wooden door, noting the attractive curling wrought iron scroll furniture.
Once inside, and immediately to the left of the door, is an ornate iron grille cover over a soakaway. On top of this stood the 1,000-year-old font, which is now in the new church. Opposite the door behind the stairs, and clearly visible, is a tall arch with blocked up window spaces. This was originally the chancel arch in the old church and was moved to its present position to shore up the tower wall, which was in need of strengthening. The old church was demolished in 1852. Now we take the impressive new wooden staircase to the top of the tower. There are 5 landing areas with plenty to see on the way. Previously, there were only ladders to reach the bell chamber. Notice the several lancet windows, wider at the bottom and narrowing to a point at their top. They resemble a medieval lance. Also notice the regular holes cut into the stones. Some must have been post holes, which would have been the weight-bearing places for landing and steps, and for the bell-holding structures. Other holes were for the internal wooden scaffolding used to build the original tower. However, it has been suggested that in the past the tower may have had a dual purpose, and that it was used for breeding pigeons as well as a bell tower. The pigeons or doves would have been bred for food, and holes were created in the stone to accommodate the birds.
The 4th landing is the old bell chamber, and on a wooden frame were hung the 5 bells of the old church. In 1813, the walls of the tower were enlarged to accommodate a tenor bell. All 6 were transferred to the new church tower in 1863. There were ropes for the ringers below to pull, which caused the clappers to strike the bells, and the ringing sound would travel through the smaller windows and across the countryside to invite the people to church. In 1848, the Reverend Essington, the vicar at the time, describes his attempt to ring the bells. The rope was whisked out of my hand and it swung backwards and forwards and up to the ceiling and down again, while all the bells in the world seemed to be clanging. I actually thought the old tower would tumble. The fifth landing reveals a steeper flight of stairs and access to the roof space. Once on the roof, we notice 5 courses of brand new stone which form the parapet, made higher in the renovation process for obvious safety reasons. There are spectacular views of the countryside from up here. Looking over the parapet on the west wall are the rainwater gutters, faithfully modelled to resemble the original gargoyles. Looking down from the east parapet, the foundations of the old church are clearly visible. The tower is to the west side of the old church, and the chancel, which has a narrow entrance, and the altar are to the east. During the restoration, when the old lead roofing was removed, the shoe imprints of some of the men who last worked on the roof were revealed. Dated 1809, they also include the men's names or initials. Tonks and Preston are names that we recognise. The shoe shape was thought to protect a building from evil spirits.
We now retrace our steps to the outside and the tower's south wall. Notice the pockmarks, probably made by musket balls. A cannonball was found at the time of Reverend Essington, 1848 to 1895, and was in his possession in 1895. His opinion was that it came to Shenstone and was buried here when Lord Brooke besieged Lichfield. However, the pockmarks may tell a different tale of locals practising shooting. The sloping roof over the south wall and buttresses has been totally resurfaced and is an indication of the vulnerability of the old tower to the weather. Had it not been repaired, the stonemasons working on the restoration feared that it would have collapsed and this historical monument would have been lost.
Prominent on the west and north walls are buttresses. They were built to reinforce, strengthen and support the tower walls. They are arranged in deep steps of at least 3 blocks which reduce in size towards the top. Facing the village on the north wall of the tower hung a clock. In 1827 it was gifted to the villagers by Samuel Hill in memory of his wife. Today it hangs in a new church tower. Around the perimeter of the tower are 3 information boards which contain more information about the rich history of the tower.
Thank you for taking the time to watch our film of Shenstone's Old Church Tower. We hope that you'll be inspired to visit the tower in person to appreciate both the tower and the other fascinating old buildings which feature in our 3 Shenstone Community Library heritage trails. All trails start and finish at the community-run library, which also has a renowned coffee shop selling excellent barista-made coffee and delicious cakes. Further information about the tower can be found at www.theoldchurchtoweratShenstone.org.